We're excited for our Bookster segment. Bookster is a website for book lovers and much more. Joining us in studio is Anthony Scaramucci, former White House Communications Director, founder of Skybridge Capital, author, and my friend of Bold, at least I'm saying that anyway. Anthony is here to share with us his new book, Trump, the Blue Collar President. Welcome back, Anthony.
It's great to be here. Do you remember the last time I was here?
You were here with Clay and I.
Yeah, it was the Monday before Election Day.
Yes, in person. We had you via Skype recently before.
I mean, Skype recently, but the last time I was sitting here in the studio with you was the Monday before Election Day.
That's right, yep.
So here we are, right? That was pretty.
It was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, 2 years of amazingness, right?
Yes, so much winning.
2016, you were here.
Yeah, in person. Yeah, we've had him via
Okay.
Skype, but not here, sitting in the hot seat.
The president won.
So I thought you were talking about just a few weeks ago. So, Anthony, you write in your book this quote: "My father and Fred Trump lived by the simple American equation: the harder you worked, the more opportunity you afforded your family." Can you respond to the multiple allegations of tax fraud against Fred Trump and also Donald Trump?
Okay, so I read the article as you guys did, and I have a whole staff of accountants, and I have a lot of friends here in New York that looked at the article, and a lot of us had the same reaction that you can't call what the president and his father did tax fraud, because trust me, if it was actually tax fraud, given the high-profile nature of both of them in New York and how big of a target they would be for prosecutors and IRS enforcement agents, they would have been prosecuted and brought to justice for those quote-unquote tax frauds. So there is a very famous case, if you go to law school, by Justice Leonard Hand, who wrote about taxation and public income taxation after he came into power in 1913. He basically said that you can, to the best of your capability, do everything possible to avoid taxes, provided that it's legal. And so I think it's a bit of a stretch to call what the Trumps did tax fraud. If you want to say that the president got more money from his dad than he said, he's saying that he got $1 million from his dad.
$400+ million.
It appears that he got a lot more money, and I think that that's been substantiated by the press. And so I'm not here to defend that, but I don't think he did anything illegal. And I'm just here to tell you that, Listen, he's a big enough target where if he had done something illegal, they would have gone after him. He's been Donald Trump for a very long time in New York.
So you were a Goldman Sachs executive, so you work with money all the time. Donald Trump's been bankrupt around 5 times. What is your response to that? Because he says he wants to run the country like a business, and he's put so many businesses. In the casino business, he bankrupted the casino. Like, how do you even do that?
Okay, so let's just say a couple things. He bankrupted 4 companies. He's never personally been bankrupt. Unfortunately, what happens in our society when you're an aggressive entrepreneur and you're a risk taker, you can get a lot of things wrong. And so if you go back to that area, they probably had overbuilt those casinos, and they probably missized what that market was going to be comparatively to a place like Las Vegas. And so they got over their skis and they took on too much debt. And so as a result of which they had to restructure and go into bankruptcy. And it did flip him into a lopsided status himself. I write in the book that he once said to his daughter, Ivanka Trump, they were walking by a homeless person, and he said, "You see, that person there is worth about $900 million more than me." And so in some ways you could say, okay, that's very bad. It looks prima facie very bad. In other ways you can say it's good because he's a big risk taker, and he's somebody that built a very big successful career for himself. And I can tell you, but my own career, I've taken some huge risks too. I mean, it was obviously a huge risk to go work in the communications job in the White House. That didn't work out so well. I effectively declared political bankruptcy. Okay, and so I also put my company up for sale, missizing the political situation with China and missizing my buddies in Washington, particularly my Republican buddies in Washington that don't like the president and didn't like me working for him, the number that they did on me. And so I failed in that way as well. But yet when you step back and you look at my entire career, it's been pretty good.
Well, and
say the same thing about the president. His has been amazing, actually.
I think the alternative is, I know like in Asia and Japan and some other just cultures or areas where bankruptcy laws are much more stringent, that there's actually a lot more shame associated with taking risks.
It's culturally
shameful. And that's
shameful,
where you have lower growth because it's no
But
risk, no reward.
you can take risks if you have $413 million in the bank, and it says if you put it in an index fund, you would actually have more than you have today. I mean, that's what the New York Times report showed.
And I hear you, but here's the thing. It's like I have I grew up in a family that didn't have any money, but we lived in a town where like people on the water had a lot of money. Some of my buddies were jealous of the people who were growing up with money and they didn't have any money. And now my kids are growing up with a little bit of money. And so they've experienced a little bit of the other side of that. And what I say to people is, hey, you can't really fault people for who they were born into. And you can't really fault people for the status that they arrive on the planet because it's either providential or luck. It depends on your religious beliefs. For me, I think it's providential. And so the president was born into a wealthy family. I think he took the measure of wealth that he had in his family and he did something absolutely stupendous with it. Whether you like the ups and downs or the travails of his life, he went on to become a billionaire. He went on to build some very successful properties. He has an internationally recognized brand name. He went on to become a television star for 15 years. Very hard to run a television program for 15 years and get those levels of ratings in prime time, given the media fragmentation in the TV market. And then in 17 short months from announcing himself to be president, he walked into the White House. And so you'd have to step back and look at it and say, okay, yeah, throughout that whole thing, he took a lot of risks, and there were elements of his life story where there was abysmal failure. But I mean, there's also a story there about persistence and tenacity.
I'm just pushing back on the notion that if you say you're going to run the country like a business and you've been bankrupt multiple times, you can't talk about fiscal responsibility. You give tax cuts, the deficit increases by 17%. I'm just pushing back on the notion that he's, this money man.
Okay, and listen, I mean, there's probably 50-ish plus % of the people that have pushed back on that notion. So
Right.
I'm not here to give you a hard time. I'm just here to explain to you, why he won. I'm here to explain to you what he did, which was unique from the other establishment politicians. And I'm also telling you that his policies are by and large working because if you look at the growth in the economy, the depth and width of the growth, and a lot of the critics on the Democratic side will say, well, the wages aren't up ahead of inflation, but they actually are for the bottom 10% of the society. And don't go by me, just look at what the Wall Street Journal reported 2 weeks ago. The bottom 10% of the society has experienced about 5.5% wage growth in the last year. And so that's very, very positive. It means that the president's policies are working. And what we both know, since all of us understand the economy, it takes about 18 months to really see the full benefit of the tax cut. If you're saying that the tax cut has increased the deficit, no question about that. I'm of the belief, having studied the deficit for the last 30 years, I don't like the hypocrisy around the deficit. I don't
Especially for Republicans.
I don't like when the Republicans are railing on Democrats for running up a deficit and saying nothing when they're running up a deficit. I don't like the hypocrisy around it. But I'm just here to analyze it as an economist and tell you that the United States can sustain the level of deficit spending that we have right now, provided that we get economic growth and we tame inflation. If we do those two things, I think we'll be fine.
Anthony, we have some breaking news. Judge Timothy Kelly grants the CNN motion to reinstate Acosta's White House press pass. He would have been in Bill Shine's role. What's your take on this? Is the judge right, wrong?
Well, first of all, I love Bill Shine, and just for the record, I was actually recruiting Bill Shine in July of 2017. So when the president was offering me that job, I said my job is going to be to bring in A-plus players because that's what good entrepreneurs do. It's not like these insecure maniacs in Washington that are like B players that hire D players. A players go out and hire A-plus players. And so I was moving to recruit Bill into the job. But I disagree with the president on this strategy with the media. I would have never revoked his press pass. I would have argued against it. I'm certain that members of his staff that have strong personalities went to the president and said, we should not be revoking this guy's press pass because, number one, you're going to make him into a martyr unnecessarily. Number two, you could likely lose a court situation, which would be another bad thing. And number three, which I think you know because we are friends, I don't like the war against the media. I think it's a very, very bad strategy for the President of the United States to be in a heavy, deep, escalating war with the media, even though the Harvard study says that 92% of the media has been biased against him, even though he feels that he's been viciously and in times unfairly attacked, taking it that extra notch to where it is right now is not good for the society. It's not good for the president.
Do you think there's a double standard, though, with how people in the media were treating Acosta versus Lewandowski? Because I would actually say the way they treated young women were very similar. The way Corey Lewandowski touched Michelle Fields, Corey Lewandowski was removed from the Trump campaign.
But that video was doctored.
But he apologized. No, even when you see other videos of how he physically,
you're pointing out that there's a double standard. So
yes.
Your viewers know that there's a double standard. The three of us know that of course there's a double standard.
Well,
there's high levels of hypocrisy, and there's a double standard. I'm on the phone on the way in here with a journalist that's totally forgets the fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to resign during the Democratic National Convention because they caught her in the Hillary Clinton campaign rigging
that's
the nomination.
absolutely true.
And but they don't talk about that anymore. They leave that out. We're talking about Russian collusion and all the nefarious things that the Republicans did. But
Wasserman Schultz just gave an interview with Chuck Todd saying she was the victim.
So we know we know there's a double standard. But here's the beauty of the fragmented media and places like Bold TV. Places like Bold TV offer a perspective that can be cleaner and a little bit fairer and more objective, which is why you guys have such good ratings.
So, can you respond to the Toronto Star's kind of expose on the fact that Donald Trump's lied 815 times in the past 31 days leading up?
I thought he's lied like 9,000 times. No? I thought it was I thought the Washington Post had him at 9,500.
But this is the Toronto. So they said that he lied 815 times, and I think 280-ish days in his first 280 days as president.
I think it's way more than that.
But it escalated during the leading up to the midterms with all of the talk about the caravan and that the Democrats were trying to get away with pre-existing conditions.
I think what people are not recognizing, or they've chosen not to recognize, is that the president is doing that. People get upset with me because I'm trying to explain it. I'm not sanctioning the president's lying. I'm not saying that it's okay for him to lie. But I am telling you, you want to talk about hypocrisy, politicians are lying when their mouths are moving. As soon as they open their mouths, they start the process of lying. And now what the good politicians have done in the establishment is they've shaded themselves so much that you can't even understand what they're saying anymore, and you don't even listen. And by and large, politicians never live up to their promises anyway because they talk out of both sides of their mouth. So we know politicians lie. President happens to be now a politician. But what I did say, which people don't like, I'm sorry that they don't like this, he's intentionally doing it. There's a device in his personality. He can't help himself. He's throwing diversionary Molotov cocktails at the media. And when you reference, not you personally, but second person generic reference his lying, he triples down on the lying. Okay, and he does that because he knows that there'll be people in newsrooms all over the country striking matches to their hair and running around in the newsroom acting like a hall monitor in middle school, analyzing his lies. And so let me tell you why he does that. Because he has figured out there's a very large group of people in the United States that don't like the elites and they don't like the media elites. And so when he does that to those people, it works. It galvanizes them, and this is a little bit of a Yogi Berraism, so let me say it even though we're on television. The elites don't like the president. But let me tell you something about our society. The non-elites don't like the elites in the same way that the elites don't like the president. Okay, and so the president understands that, and he's doing things to drive the elites crazy, and one of them is all of this intentional lying.
So we got a Facebook comment says, "What do you think of Michael Avenatti's arrest?"
I think it's bogus.
He's your friend, Avenatti. You guys had sort of a bromance.
It's not that I have a bromance. I'm a person like those two guys that were on Saturday Night Live that may disagree politically. I can get along with somebody that I disagree with politically. My wife and I patched up our marriage. She's a liberal. We do a podcast called Mooch and the Misses. We love each other, but we're different politically. I mean, we should be patriots first, and we should be Americans first, and partisans way last. Okay, so Michael and I have developed a relationship. I like Michael. I disagree with Michael's politics. I disagree with a lot of things that Michael stands for and believes. That doesn't mean I can't like him. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's one of the nonsensical things that we're doing to each other.
But he's been
demonizing
arrested
each other.
domestic.
So let's
assault, right?
let's let the facts unfold. I say what's interesting now, what's happening to Michael, is that Justice Kavanaugh was accused of certain things. Was there or was there not due process related to it? And now Michael's being accused of certain things, and he clearly would like some due process related to it. And so maybe, like the congressman and Peter from SNL, maybe people now that are being victimized symmetrically will start to realize, wait a minute, we've got to dial this back a little bit and we've got to understand each other better. But the politics of defacing people and dehumanization and characterizing people, I mean, look, they did a whole complete number on me in 11 days. These Washington jokesters, okay? It's fine. I had a choice. I could have sat in the corner and sat in the shame box that they built for me, or I could continue to be myself. I chose the latter, not the former. It is what it is, you know? I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, so your book.
And by the way, my 15 minutes of fame hasn't really started yet, so just everybody relax. Okay?
Wait, is that saying you're going to run for governor? Is your book your launch pad, the blue
it's
collar
absolutely
president?
ridiculous. No, I'm not running for governor. I'm trying to stay married, okay? I had a very rough time professionally and personally going into the political theater. I had a great business that I built. The business got hurt as a result of all this stuff. I'm back at the business. I would like to double the size of the business and stay married. I mean, those are two super important things for me. Okay, and I hate these politicians, by the way. If you haven't figured that out, I think they're disgusting people, and
You would never ever run for governor ever.
I didn't rule it out like never ever. I didn't say never ever. I'm saying right now. I'm trying to say, but I'm not a politician. I'm not one of these guys going to say to you, I'm not running for governor, and then I'm going to run for governor. I'm just saying right now, I'm not doing anything politically related, and so therefore, I'm not running for governor in 2022 because you got to start like today.
Well, look, I'm a progressive. We may disagree politically, but I agree about the elite's point. The media loved Clinton, and that's why they couldn't see it coming. So,
But, you know, I'm actually, when you say you're a progressive, I'm actually probably further to the left than most of your friends on social issues. Because if you're a true libertarian, you don't care what other people do in their bedrooms. I laugh at these conservatives. Okay, so you're for a smaller government everywhere in my life except in my bedroom. You want a larger government in my bedroom to find out, like, what I'm doing in my bedroom? You guys are jokers. Do you realize the hypocrisy of all this nonsense?
Well, hypocrisy is a universal sin in politics.
By the way, I'm not saying that we're not all hypocritical to some varying degrees, but let's cut the nonsense. Okay, your generation, okay, you're probably like 30 years younger than me. Your generation, it's going to be, we blew it. Okay, the baby boomer generation absolutely blew it. It's going to be incumbent upon you guys to dial back the nonsense, dial back all the unnecessary tension.
And the debt.
Yeah, and focus on right or wrong policies as opposed to left or right. The debt is totally manageable, but you need a 25-year plan. And so start holding people that are elected to that. Say, hey, where's the 25-year plan to fix these problems? Nobody has one. Everyone's talking about a 2-minute plan. You know who has a 25-year plan? The Chinese. They got a 25 and 50-year plan. What are our leaders doing? All right, anyway, I'm off my soapbox.
No, you're a grown-up.
Thank you for leaving my seat as high as it is. You know, Chris Cuomo puts the seat for me very low. It's a little intimidating.
Yeah, we don't play those dirty cable tricks.
What's that?
We don't play the dirty cable tricks.
No, I'm telling you. I mean, when I'm on Cuomo's show, I'm like looking up at him. I mean, any moment I
was
could
with the Young
get
Turks
hit or something.
So
Yeah,
they wouldn't do that to you on the Young Turks either.
no, we would not shorten your stool.
You were with the Young Turks
She's
too?
with them now. She's a guest
Oh, I'm a
host
lefty.
today.
Yeah.
I know. I realized
You
you were
figured.
lefty.
Did you figure it out?
I didn't have you profiled in the beginning. It was after you opened your mouth. I realized what I was dealing with. Okay.
Thanks, Anthony. You should come back anytime.
All right.
Guys, make sure to
Good to
check
hear.
out his book, The Blue Collar President of Trump, the Blue Collar President.
By the way, if you are a Democrat or a progressive, read the book because I explained how he stole your base in the book. Stop calling these people deplorable and ethnocentric. They're not. That's a very small fringe. They're just nice people that want living wages.
I went to one Trump rally a week leading up to it. And yeah, the elitism on the Democratic side is like despicable. That's why Bernie Sanders resonated with the
100%.
base. And so,
I said that in my
Yeah.
book. The only two people that understood it were Trump and Sanders.
right.
Stop calling them what you're calling them if you want to get them back.
Yep. Trump understood that. That's how we got this.
Have a great weekend,
He did.
ladies.
All right.